1989, Jose Rizal, the man who inspired the whole of the Philippines to revolt against the oppression of the Spaniards, also penned and drew what is known as the first Filipino comic strip, The Monkey and the Tortoise. But it wasn't until 1929 did the comics industry take off. Created by writer Romualdo Ramos and cartoonist and illustrator Tony Velasquez, Kenkoy hit the stands. Kenkoy was everything the Filipino was, is, and will most likely forever be. Funny, goofy, smart, sensible. He was a fashionista and always wore his trademark suit even before the world caught up to it. He was also the first to mix different words from different languages in one sentence and made it the official language of the young. So if you're wondering where Taglish came from, it came from Kenkoy. He started phrases like, "How is you?" by Gali, Okidoki, and others. Other characters followed, such as Kulafu by Francisco Reyes and Pedrito Reyes. Kulafu was inspired by Tarzan. He was snatched by an eagle as an infant, but somehow landed on the hands of an ape who raised him like her own. Newspaper comic strips continued to be popular today. After World War II, Filipino publishers saw the potential of comic books as even American GIs had brought the books along with them for entertainment wherever they go. In 1946, the first comics magazine, Halakhak, was born. Halakhak actually only lasted a few issues, but the legacy is insurmountable. It was followed by a number of comics anthologies such as Filipino Comics, Tagalog Classics, Especial, and Hiwaga Comics. These are all published by the same publisher of Liwayway. Throughout the 1950s and the next 3 decades, comics would become the literature of the masses as thousands of comics were sold in sidewalks and also rented out in sari-sari stores throughout the country. The comic industry in other countries were also booming, but what sets us apart from others is our detail in our artwork. Francisco Coching started this art style. He used dynamic figure drawings and put more details that added to the dimension of the narrative. Coching's work, according to Dr. Patrick Flores, would act as the art books for aspiring Filipino artists who could not afford to go to art school. By 1927-1950, Mars Ravelo launched the iconic character of Darna in Philippine comics. Darna is widely considered as the most adapted and celebrated Filipino superhero. Narda is Darna's ordinary human counterpart. Narda uses crutches to walk. Whenever she swallows a magical white stone, cared for by a little boy, she turns into a superhuman. The magic white stone concept became a cultural iconography as Philippine folklore has many stories of brave young mortals with nothing but courage and pure heart that made them worthy of magical amulets. Ravelo also created Maruja and Jezebel, Roberta, and Bonjing. Many of these characters perfectly epitomize to this day what Filipinos are: underdogs, kind, funny, courageous, smart, and resilient. Pablo Gomez is another notable character in our Philippine comic industry. He wrote such memorable works such as Inday Bote, Machete, Kapag Puno na ang Salop, and Bunsong Kerubin. It is this amazing art that inspired Hollywood to reach out to Filipino illustrators. In 1971, Tony De Zuniga met with DC Comics editor Joe Orlando, which led to the Filipino invasion of the United States comic industry. Filipino artists eventually drew for American fantasy and horror titles published by DC, Marvel, and Warren. And then there's Whilce Portacio in the 1990s. William Whilce Portacio is a Filipino-American comic book writer and artist noted for his work on such titles as Punisher, X-Factor, Uncanny X-Men, Iron Man, Wetworks, and Spawn. He ignited a new form of comics, something that was a little bit more influenced by American mainstream comics. The new works were mostly superhero books written in English. Unfortunately, by the middle of 2000s, the comic industry started tanking. Illustrators and writers didn't have a choice but to self-publish. Arnold Are is one of those who took this opportunity and turned it to his advantage. He came out with the mythology class. It's a funny, insightful, and very Filipino graphic novel that featured some of Philippines' most popular mythological characters. It's a pivotal time in the Philippine comic industry. He also released it as a serial novel and later on collected it to be published by a mainstream book publisher, Adarna Books. Summoned to a secret gathering one stormy night by the mysterious Mrs. Encanta, University of the Philippines student Nicole Lacson finds herself face-to-face with tikbalangs, kapres, and all sorts of encantos, Philippine mythological creatures she thought were myths. Together with newfound friends, she embarks on a quest and fights alongside heroes of her childhood against an age-old terror. Other novels like Jaja Zaturna, written by Carlo Vergara, and Trece by Budjetan and Cadjo Baldissimo, were also self-published before getting picked by mainstream publications. Trece was picked up by Netflix, and a slew of other comics are now hitting our stands. And here we are. I hope to be a part of the next chapter of the Philippine comic book industry. We are releasing a comic book via NFT titled Aswang. As you may have guessed based on the title, this is very much based on Philippine mythology and mythologies of other countries in Asia. Aswang is a story of 4 boys who came from elite monster clans, but they are bad at being bad. Disowned by their families, they are broke, hungry, and homeless, and they were forced to enroll in a superhero school. As if being monsters isn't hard enough, they now have to become superheroes. This will be launched in the Bitcoin 2022 conference, and we will be highlighting, as I've said, different Asian mythological characters with a modern spin. We will be releasing the first sketches of the characters via NFT. I hope you support it. Please click on the description box to know more about it and to check out the different characters. If any one of you will be in the Bitcoin 2022 conference, we are at booth 1209. Hope to see you there. Bye!